Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Now, in this video, I want to talk about a topic that's making its round on the internet, which is standing up against Muslim leaders. I have already made a reaction video on the topic, and I've made a reaction video regarding Daniel annihilates Saajid Lipham. I hope I pronounced the names correctly. Now on the outset, I would just like to say that I'm nothing more than a servant of Allah. I'm a Muslim, alhamdulillah. I'm not a scholar. I haven't studied like many of the fine brothers on the internet today doing da'wah at Medina University or Al-Azhar, or I've gone through some sort of an academic program. So all my knowledge is through self-study, researching online and offline through books, speaking to imams and other sheikhs, and just basically learning from people of knowledge in that sense. So this is my own personal opinion and my understanding of the judgments or the standing regarding these matters. Now, from my understanding from a hadith that I've read and what I've heard also from Saajid and his most recent video, which I have here, I don't personally like the title, because the title is the dishonesty of Daniel. He makes very good points, and all of Saajid Lipham's videos are very educational. I am going to attach his channel on the description, as well as I'm going to attach the link to his video, his recent video, which I believe he uploaded about maybe 10 hours ago now, from me recording. So it's one of his most recent videos, and he does touch on a lot of the points that Daniel's made regarding standing up against Muslim leaders. Now, I can kind of understand from each one's perspective, and I believe there is some sort of a misunderstanding between the brothers, and that's why this dispute is going on between them. Each one's kind of looking at the question with from a different angle. There are certain misunderstandings as well on the side of brother Daniel, in the sense that if you're saying that you can't stand up against Muslims, or that's just raining outside, it's kind of like, he uses the term bootlicker. It's basically like you're a government agent and that kind of stuff. And I would like, if Daniel ever sees my video, I would like to say, do not judge people in authority, presidents or a king or someone in the monarchy. Don't judge them, because you don't know their situation, you don't know what's in their heart, and maybe they are misguided at the moment, and may Allah guide them and show them the beauty of Islam. Although they are Muslims, or they are Muslims, as long as they say the Shahada, they're a Muslim. As long as they perform the prayer, they're a Muslim. So we can't say they're kuffar, or they're a disbeliever, or they're a Zionist agent and all that. We can't throw these things around. Maybe they have weak iman, we can say that. Each of us go through cycles. Sometimes where our iman is quite high during Ramadan, and then after Ramadan, sometimes the iman drops a bit. It moves up and down. So no one's ever sort of like a very high all the time, and no one's perfect, included myself. We all make mistakes, and we only, we do our best, and it's really up to Allah to accept our actions or our intentions to be accepted, and it's only through the mercy of Allah that we will attain paradise. And so it's not through our actions, so we only have to do our best. But I just like to say something on the matter of standing up against Muslim leaders, Saajid makes it very clear that on the point that you can criticize certain actions. So if someone's doing something haram, you can speak up against it, and you can say, well, brother or XYZ, or even address a government and say, well, this is not the methodology, or this is not Islam, and Islam says this and that, and give them the solution, advise them politely, with respect. However, you do not stand up as in like have sort of like a military coup against the government, or create some sort of an uprising like we've seen in the Arab Spring, because this only creates fitna in the society, and it's always worse than before. So I can tell you that in many of the countries that have had this sort of uprising, what took over is far worse than what was there before. So things do get worse when these things happen. It doesn't get any better, and those that are calling for an uprising, they are as ignorant or even more ignorant than the current leaders. So if they take power, they'll only take things backwards. They're not going to implement Islam. And I've had the privilege to speak to some of these people that are claiming to be representing Islam, and their knowledge of Islam is very basic, at a very basic level. A lot of them do not know anything what Islamic economics has to offer, or the real political system, or the methodologies of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. They talk about these things, but the only thing that's on their mind is about this Sharia, but they don't understand what is Sharia. They're the most ignorant of from amongst us in that sense, and these are the people that are calling for khuruj, and they're like that. So even if they take power, they're only going to drag things backwards. They're not going to improve the livelihood, or they're not going to improve the state of the ummah in any way. They'll just make things worse. And also I'd like to say, alhamdulillah, in my life I have met a lot of members of families that are related to certain ruling class, or leaders. A former president, the son of a former president, was a very close friend of mine. He is still a friend of mine. We've lost contact, but for an African nation. So I kind of got to know members of families of former leaders, and also a member of a monarchy as well, a Muslim monarchy. And you'll be very surprised. I actually gate crashed an event once when I was a very young man, and I sat with him and we had a discussion. I'm not going to mention his name, but I will give a clue that he is descendant of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. In fact, he told me that. He told me, he's a Hashemite, or from the descendants of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We had a very good conversation. We spoke about the methodology of the Prophet ﷺ. So we were having a nice conversation, and it wasn't there was no threat, or I wasn't making any there was no aggression or anything. We were just having a laugh. He was telling me about his family and how he was going to be the king of that country, and then someone else, but he's still a member of the family. The people that ejected me from the thing were the British Secret Service, the security. They're the ones who ejected me. They want to know who I am and what am I doing there, and how could I be sitting next to this individual, and what we were talking about and what was discussed, and they were like interrogating me in that way, and that individual, who is a member of the monarchy, he just smiled at me and shrugged his shoulders, and like, my hands are tied, that kind of thing. So he couldn't speak up and say, well, actually, we're having a nice friendly conversation, and I'm not disturbing anything. So it was the British that basically ejected me, and they were interrogating me and telling me that I shouldn't be here, and how did I get in, and all that stuff. And so I can tell you from the ones that I've met, or the ones I've had interaction with, they're very friendly, very approachable, but they're not free as you can imagine that they can make their own choices. Yes, they are puppets in a way. They are being controlled by their handler. Call it whatever you want, call it the shadow government, whatever. That is true. There's no one denying that. But sometimes they cannot. They are like a prisoner. Okay, so, and they're like just like an individual, like a some of the Muslim brothers, that don't go for Jummah, for example, and you ask them, Jummah is a fard, and they'll tell you, well, they've got to work, and their work is worship, which is an incorrect understanding of the order. It's not work is a worship, therefore you can abandon Jummah, because Allah in the Quran tells us, when the call for Jummah is made, you leave your trade and you go to pray. So there is no ifs or buts, and there's no excuses about it, but there is a misunderstanding. So those people, they are Muslims, however they abandon their Jummah because they're afraid of their livelihood. For example, they're afraid that maybe if they go to Jummah they'll get fired, which is not true. If you go to your employer and you tell him that you have a religious obligation to pray, he would let you go and pray. He's not going to do that. But they have this fear. Shaitans play with their mind, and they have a very weak iman, and they're afraid that they might lose their job, and therefore they wouldn't be able to provide for their family. They're married, they have children, so they're worried this is the only job they have, and if they lose the job, then maybe they'll become unemployed. And then the pressures from their wife, obviously, who's very materialistic, she might also put a lot of pressure on them, and maybe she'll call for a divorce if their husband loses his job. So there are women that have also a weak iman that put pressures on their partner and cause them to go down the wrong route. So likewise, leaders are no different. Leaders are not a president of a country or a king of a country is not someone that came from a different planet. They came from the people. So there might be a father to someone that there might be an uncle to someone and there might be a distant relative to someone else. So that they're a human being. They had a mother and a father. They might have siblings. They have children. So they are a human being, and just likewise, exactly the same as they have weak iman or have weak faith, and they are scared of their handler more than they're afraid or fear for Allah, for example. So they fear Iblis, they fear the jinns, they fear the handler, they fear the superpowers in this world, the shadow governments and so on, more than they fear Allah. However, we cannot say they are disbeliever and you should stand up against them. And we can only pray for them, we can guide them, we can criticize their actions, like say this is not from Islam. You could disobey instructions. So even if someone's to tell you something haram, even if it's your own parents, if your own parents tell you to do shirk, for example, you disobey them. You're not gonna go against the order of Allah. It's just logical. However, you don't disrespect your parents on the other stuff. So if your mother might go and ask you, could you buy me some, groceries or something. You don't disobey your parents. You don't disobey your mother. You go and you obey your mother. However, you do not obey your parents if they're misguided or they don't understand Islam. They might not be Muslims, or they might be weak Muslims, and they might not have that understanding, same level of knowledge. So you don't obey them on something that goes against Allah's order, and you only obey them on what's in line with Allah's Sharia, the divine law. So that's just perfect sense, and just the way you're supposed to deal with leaders. From my best understanding, this is the way I see it. And yes, it's an obligation, obviously, to do da'wah. It's an obligation to stand up against falsehood, speak up against it, advise those people, become a better Muslim yourself, and then maybe inshallah Allah can lift that oppression from us, and then maybe a leader might change. Someone that's in a position of authority, they might change, they might have a change of heart. Their iman increases to the point where they say, well, I don't care about I'm not going to listen to my handler anymore. I'm going to listen to Allah, and I'm going to fulfill my obligation as a sultan, or the king, or khalifa, or whatever, or prime minister. I'm going to obey Allah's words in the Quran. I'm going to start implementing stuff, and also they'll reap the reward from that, because anything that Allah has prescribed for us is far superior to any man-made law, any man-made system. like in economics, because that's my field. So in economics, for example, in Islamic economics and in Islamic financial system, money has to have an intrinsic value. And right now we've adopted fake money. We've taken on an economic system, monetary system, that only will create inflation, create poverty, subjugate the citizens of any country that adopts the system to oppression and slavery, and it will only drag you down. It would destroy the country. So it does not make any sense that any country adopts this system or borrows money, for example, because riba is haram. It's very clearly, there's no ifs and buts, or maybe it's halal here, and in this situation was different than what was mentioned by the Prophet Muhammad that participating in riba, you're declaring war against Allah and the Messenger. It's very valid as it was in the past, as it's now. In fact, the riba that we have today is far worse than any riba system that existed in the past, and it's something that no one can avoid. We can only do our best to minimize the damage to our life, but you cannot completely fully be free from it, because the whole monetary system is built on riba. The whole money creation process is just built on riba, and also deception, and devaluing, stealing. So they steal money from you. So they steal the value from money by through the money creation, because that creates inflation, and the value of money that you've earned, whether it's through work, it gets devalued over time. So it's always worth less, as time goes on. So the time value of money is always the value of money is always going down as time passes. So you cannot just leave your money at home or whatever. You're always looking to, get your money to work for you in some way, whether it's through investment and so on. And of course, non-Muslims, they put their money in a bank, hoping to earn interest to minimize the damage to their wealth, which is lost through inflation, which is the side effect of this money creation process. So the whole thing is a big Ponzi scheme. So it's very clear. So any country that adopts it, obviously it doesn't make any sense. Even if a non-Muslim country adopts the system, it doesn't make sense. And the best way was to just go back to the gold standard as an example, and that will you'll maintain the value of your currency if it's backed by something that has some sort of a recognized value internationally, like gold, silver, or any asset class, halal asset class, that is, not the haram riba-based asset classes like bonds and fixed income and that kind of. This is all haram, and also the trading of speculating on the market on FX trades, digital currency and that stuff. That's all haram as well. It's not like the opinion or disopinion of this sheikh, whatever. There are a lot of corrupt people out there that will make something that's haram halal, and so that should be very clear on the outset. But in this video, in this vlog, I really want to talk about and tell anyone that's thinking about doing something, or doing an uprising, or calling people out to the street and that kind of stuff, and creating this kind of thing. It's the wrong way to go about it. It's not the way of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have to look at the seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and whatever he's done, the way he reacted to certain events, we should also follow that, because this is a divine guidance for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah chose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as the most perfect example for us to follow, the role model for us. So we should look into his life and see how he acted and how he behaved in certain situations, and what he advised us to do. We shouldn't just go on our own whims and say, okay, I feel like in the past the Prophet Muhammad might not have done that. None of the companions of the Prophet have done that, but what we can do, this is a different situation, it's not the same, so we can behave differently. That's not acceptable in Islam. We should always submit ourselves to Allah as slaves to Allah, servants of Allah, and also submit ourselves to the Prophet. We should love the Prophet, love Allah, love all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, especially the ones that he's identified to us as the closest to him, like Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar ibn Khattab, and Osman bin Affan, Ali ibn Abi Talib. So we should look at them as the role models for us when we live in our life. And when we find ourselves in any position of authority, we should also adopt their way of life, which is Islam. So this is the true Islam. The application of Islam is through these people. So we should look at them and they're not the sort of people that stood up and criticized one another in a way, in a physical, violent way. You know, they can criticize certain actions, like Abu Bakr Siddiq might say something, or Khattab might say to him, you know, or question him about something, but they will have this respectful discussion about it. They wouldn't insult each other, they wouldn't attack each other physically, they wouldn't, you know, that kind of stuff. When this happened, this whole instigation of violence, you know, Muslims killing Muslims, this was all instigated by the Khawarij. When the Khawarij came about, they are a Muslim group, or they're a deviant Muslim group that have taken things to the extreme. They're the ones who are calling for uprising against leaders and telling Osman bin Affan, oh, you're not a Muslim and you're a kafir, and all that stuff. This is completely wrong. It's not the correct approach. They're the ones who shed blood. They're the ones who started wars, and then from that deviant group came other sects, like you got the party, the Shia of Ali, which eventually turned into the Shia sect, which is more of a political difference. And obviously some Shia sects have gone as far as to associate partners and, you know, praying to imams and having intermediate and introducing a lot of bid'ah innovations in the religion. So that happens as well, but that came much later on. And what we should do, we should turn back to Allah's words, which is the Quran, and the example that Allah gave us as a role model, which is Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and this is the way we should live our life. Yes, it is true, I have to agree with you, there are some people in position of authority, people that I'm connected with, very close friends, or you know, distant families and stuff, and people that I've met. I don't want to mention any names of anyone, but the people that I've met and I've seen them, I've witnessed them taking bribes for favors, or you know, or they will pay bribes to get things done. You know, certain individuals as well. And unfortunately, when I mentioned to them, this is haram. You know, the whole bribery. You know, you're bribing someone to give you something that it's not yours, or to jump a queue or something like that, or to get certain privilege. It's completely unacceptable in Islam. And I told them, I had this discussion with them, and they turned around and said, well, they see that you know, Sharia is barbaric and it's backward, and we don't want to live in the past, and now we're different. And this is all coming not from non-Muslims. These are coming from so-called Muslims that you know, supposed to be praying. You know, they've said the Shahada, but they see what Allah's brought. They hate what Allah's brought. They know that this is from Allah, but they hate the divine laws. So there are people like that, unfortunately, in positions of authority in the community, that lack knowledge in Islam and lack iman, and have this you know, discomfort against what Allah's brought, the divine rules, because they don't understand the benefits from it. Just like in the past, I was having a discussion. There was a group of people, from medical doctors, and you know, there were atheists, there were Muslims, there were Christians in the group, and we were all having a discussion, and this topic came up about Ramadan and fasting. And some of the doctors, medical doctors, they were saying that fasting is harmful and all that stuff, and I was shocked. I told them it can't be. I mean, I was still a young man, I still didn't know a lot, and I was still learning myself. But for them to say that, I was saying it's impossible that Allah would prescribe something for us human beings that is going to be harmful for us. Everything that Allah has prescribed for us would only end up being beneficial for us, but maybe we lack the knowledge. And I went back and I started researching about the benefits of fasting, and I found there's all the stuff that these so-called medical doctors, amongst them there was a Muslim doctor, a Muslim sister doctor, or she claimed to be a Muslim. She wasn't wearing hijab, but she was saying that she's a Muslim, and you know, I'll take her word for it. and she was arguing that it's harmful and it can cause death and blah blah blah. When I went back and I started researching all the benefits of fasting, I realized that I was right just by my instinct, knowing that Allah would never prescribe something to us human beings to give us hardship. He wants to make our life easy, and He wants to benefit us. He's given us the best advice. And when I went back, I had all this evidence with me, and they were like dumbfounded, they were completely shocked at what I was telling them about all these benefits that's coming from fasting, which now you see it all over the internet. If you search on YouTube, you see all these doctors talking about the benefits of fasting. So yeah, there are a lot of, sometimes we might look into the Quran, or look into the divine rules from in Islam, and you might say, well, this is I don't think, or my opinion is not, this is not this is not good, this is not fair, or this is unjust, or you can make your own opinion as someone from the outside. But I can tell you, with a little bit of research and a little bit of investigation, you always come back and always find that what Allah has already prescribed to us human beings, Muslims or non-Muslims, it is always beneficial for us. Ultimately is the correct advice, the correct system. But like I said, there are people of different faiths. There are people that know something is right, but they're under a threat, military invasion or an assassination and that kind of stuff. So they've got a gun on their head basically, and they can't turn left or right. They can only say, okay, I'll do whatever you want, and they have to obey their master, which is the Dajjal or the shadow government. So they have to obey in that sense, because they're scared for their life, and they're scared for their family and that kind of stuff. So you cannot judge from the outside. You might look at it from the outside and say, whatever that leader is doing, or whatever that king is doing, is un-Islamic and it's completely haram, and how could he do this, and how could he not stand up for the injustices happening in Palestine and all that stuff. But you just don't understand. Maybe he's under a lot of pressure to the point that he's got a gun pointed, and you cannot see that weapon pointed at his head, or pointed at his child, or pointed at him. At any time he could get taken out, and he's now just saying, well, all I want is just want to keep my family safe. I don't want any problems. But in his heart, he's against what's going on. He's forced to sign papers. He's forced to agree to certain things, but he hasn't got a free will. And then you obviously have people that are brave, that will just speak the truth no matter what. You have people like Gaddafi, for example. He stood up and he started talking about certain things. He started blabbering on about certain things. He was a brave man, and he had to get assassinated. John F. Kennedy was a very brave man, respectable man. He seen something that was completely wrong, and he wanted to fix it, and he started speaking up against it. He started speaking about the secret governments, and he started opening his mouth, and therefore they assassinated him for this reasons as well. And the same people that had assassinated John F. Kennedy, they're the same individuals that came into power later on, and one of them became a former president of the US. Same guy that killed a former president. Instead of him going to prison, he got promoted into an American president. But that's just the way things are at the moment. This is the state of affairs. So we just have to say, well, okay, maybe if there was a righteous leader who feared none but Allah, surely Allah will protect him as well, even though it might not make any sort of it makes sense to a lame person, but I believe, I'm not scared of anything, and alhamdulillah, I speak my mind. I say the truth. This is the way I see it. I see this is the truth. I just say it. I am not afraid of anyone threatening, because at the end of the day, Allah's the one who's in charge of my life. If anyone wants to kill me, they can kill me, no problem, But if Allah doesn't will me to die, I won't. No matter if they drop things on me, it doesn't matter in that sense. And people should be like that. They should speak the truth. They should do what's right, and not fear none but Allah. And that is my opinion, and that's my advice to other Muslims as well. And even to the point, the very minimum of going to, going to Jummah, for example. There are some Muslims that have abandoned Jummah, or they don't go to Jummah every Friday. As a simple thing. No one's threatening their life to do that, but they fear poverty, and therefore they decided not to, and they continue working. And therefore, after so many years, I know these brothers, for example, and they are still in the same state. They're still in the financial income bracket. They haven't moved up. They didn't get any barakah in their income. They always got problems. Their car breaks down. This and that happens. They have all these things, and the money has no barakah for them. So they cannot get on that ladder to climb up from their financial status that they're in. They can't move up, and it's because of that. Because at the end of the day, risk is from Allah. If you go against Allah's way, Allah can withhold your risk, or He could distribute your wealth in so many places that it will take you a lifetime. You go through a lot of hardship to gather exactly the same risk that's already written for you. So why you want to make your life difficult? Why not you just obey Allah from the outset and just do it that way? But yeah, I kind of spoke. I like when I'm making a video or I'm talking, I like to just talk about different little bits and pieces here and there. But really, this video is about uprising against the Muslim leader. My opinion that we should not do an uprising. We should advise, criticize, give our opinion on things, obviously with a little bit of knowledge as well. Even at a very basic level, go to find out what Islamic economics has to offer, the legal system, and just share that with the world. And I believe that anybody, whether it's a non-Muslim government or a Muslim government, they'll always find benefits. They'll always find benefits from the divine laws from Allah, and they'll always find that it's far superior than any man-made system. So it's pointless for them. They can research, they can study. I'm not saying nothing wrong. I mean, in Islam, it always encourages you to read and research and investigate and try to understand certain things. Like maybe you want to find out like the benefits of fasting. It's perfectly normal to research and learn about all these aspects. But don't go to the extent of trying to think of a better way, because you'll ultimately waste your time and your effort trying to compete against the Creator. He knows best. He created you and me. He created everything. He knows what's good for us and what's harmful for us. So for you to waste your time trying to prove something that Allah has already told us, this is haram, stay away from this, stay away from alcohol, stay away from eating pork, and or fast and do this and all these things that Allah has already told us. If you try to go and find the opposite, or try to find the benefits of alcohol, or the benefits, if you try to waste your time in these things, that ultimately you would end up wasting your life on something, and at the end you will only end up coming back and to find out that what Allah's already told you in black and white is already the reality, because Allah's the one that created. He knows what's good for you. Just like a manufacturer of a watch, if I have this watch and it said it's not waterproof, for example, it's pointless for me trying to dip it in water to find out. The manufacturer, the maker of this watch, already knows that it's not waterproof. Therefore, it warns you on the packaging: do not spill water on it. Do not bathe with it. Don't go swimming with it, because it will damage your watch. So if you go and swimming with it, with that watch, for example, it's not waterproof. I don't know if it is or not, but let's just assume that the maker of this watch it's not advises you not to spill water on it and all that stuff, because it can damage the watch. if you just go swimming with it and then you discover that the watch is damaged, don't blame anyone else except yourself, because it's your stupidity. You took it swimming and it clearly said in the packaging that it's not waterproof. So it's exactly the same. So it only makes logical sense that we should just follow the Creator, Allah, in this matter. And if any non-Muslim watches this video, I don't know who will watch these videos, but if any non-Muslim, the only recommendation I can give you is to do justice to yourself. Pick up a Quran, speak to a Muslim, don't speak to non-Muslims, don't speak to ignorant people, or someone that is maybe born a Muslim but he's not following, or he doesn't even understand why he was created. Don't speak to people like that. Speak to people with some knowledge. Go visit a mosque. They're very welcoming. Anyone can visit a mosque, just find good people online, contact them, get a free Quran from a mosque. Or even contact me. I'll send you a free Quran anywhere in the world. It's not a problem at all, in any language. I'll source it and I'll send it to you. Just pick up the Quran, read it for the first time, just once in a lifetime. Even if you don't believe in a Creator, just read the Quran and just judge for yourself at the end with an open mind. Judge for yourself at the end, because you owe it to yourself. You owe yourself Islam. Believe you me. And I can guarantee you, if you are sincere and you're open-minded and you read without any bias or any sort of preconceived misunderstanding that you might have seen on the media, Muslims are terrorists and so on, it's like, just completely with an open mind, just read the Quran, and you will see the beauty of Islam, and you will see that everything that's in that book will only benefit you, would improve your life, will make you successful. And unfortunately, yes, some of us are completely naive and we think that success is just material success, the brand of car that you drive in, how big your house is. But we don't need, what can you do? What can you do? You think you're going to be happy with a mansion with so many rooms. If you've got that kind of money, I would personally advise you to live in a reasonable size house for yourself and your family, and the rest of it, use it to benefit others, because ultimately that's what's going to benefit you in the afterlife. Allah's not going to reward you more if you've got a big house with a swimming pool and you've got a couple of houses here and there scattered and empty property and that kind of stuff for your luxury. He's not going to reward you how big your yacht is or what brand of car you, whatever. But whatever good that you do to others, this is what's going to benefit you. Service to many leads to greatness. Always remember that. So try to think of how can whatever I do in my life, how is that going to benefit others? Before it's going to benefit you as well. You're doing business, whatever, but that business might be to do something that will benefit others or solve a problem. And you're making a profit, a modest profit. It's not about maximizing profit. We're Muslims. We're not trying to build for this dunya. Make a modest profit. It's very normal. Make something for this world. But ultimately, what you're thinking, how is my business going to create employment for other human beings, whether Muslims or non-Muslims? How are you going to benefit society? How are you going to assist in eradicating poverty? How are you going to assist in improving the environment? So, for example, I don't like throwing rubbish in the street. This is just the way. I grew up in the West. I grew up in London. I went to Scotland. I've lived part of my life in Scotland. I've travelled different parts of the world as well. But I have this habit. I don't throw rubbish in the street. However, you go to a Middle Eastern country, you go to African country. Unfortunately, they still have that bad habit of throwing rubbish in the street. They're not thinking about the side effects for others. They drive recklessly, very offensively. They're not thinking about endangering other people's lives. They're thinking about themselves and how can I benefit, how can I get to my destination sooner, and that kind of stuff. So if they have a bit of rubbish in the car, they'll just throw it out the window. They don't care, if it's a hard object, they threw it and it damaged someone else's windshield of another car. They think the world is theirs basically, and they're living for just the whole world was created for them. They're not aware of the surroundings, and this unfortunately has to change. As Muslims, we are different. We should be different. There are obviously, like I said, in Middle Eastern countries, they're Muslims, right? So there are a lot of Muslims there, but they behave as disbelievers, or worse than the disbelievers. I mean, you go to any European country, they might be secular, but at least they don't throw rubbish in the street. Some do, but vast majority would respect themselves enough not to throw rubbish in the street. But you speak to a brother or a sister in any of these countries, and you tell them, you shouldn't be throwing rubbish in the street, you shouldn't be driving this way, you shouldn't be doing this and that. They'll say to you, it's none of your business, it's our life. They think the whole world, the whole country is theirs, basically, and everyone owes them something. Everyone should be giving them way, and they always blaming the government for all the problems. The government has a role to play, but don't ask what your government can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. Always think that way. It's a popular statement. It's not mine. I didn't invent it. Don't ask what your country could do for you, but ask what you could do for your country. And that's the way we should be. We should be asking, how can I contribute to my community, the society as a whole, the country, the world? What is my purpose on this life? What can I bring? How can I add value? Yeah. So service to many leads to greatness. So this is the way that we should be thinking. This is the mentality that we should be having. And believe you me, if we start implementing Islam in our life, and not just the spiritual religious obligations, but all other aspects of Islam in our life, and once you are in a position of authority, whether you're a business owner or you're an engineer or a doctor or whatever, and you start implementing in your occupation as well, eventually it will go up to the point where we might have a righteous leader, a brave leader that will stand up against injustice, and then eventually we'll be at the point where we'll be at a high rank again, and all communities, irrespective of their belief, whether they believe or not in a creator. Allah said in the Quran, there's no compulsion in a way of life, no compulsion in religion. Allah only guides those who seek guidance. So Allah's given them that freedom and choice, so no one can impose any way of life. So Muslims could not impose their Islamic way of life on non-Muslims, for example. They cannot force anyone to convert or to accept Islam, or to wear hijab, for example, or whatever. I mean, I met one lady, a Scottish lady. She was a non-Muslim, and she was married to a Muslim gentleman from the Asian subcontinent. She was telling me they got divorced recently, and I was trying to find out, what went wrong in the relationship. I wanted to learn, at what point things went wrong. And she started telling me that although she didn't accept Islam, she didn't want to be Muslim, and when she married this brother and so on, he told her, look, I don't mind as long as when we go out you wear a hijab. So she, in her heart, she didn't believe in Islam, and he was already telling her, wear a hijab, and when she's outside. She doesn't even believe in a creator, and now he's telling her, and he already chose her as a wife in the beginning. He married her, so he should have accepted and respected her way of life. If he wanted to guide her into Islam, he should have given knowledge. He should have spoke to her in a gentle way. But he married her and he chose her without her even accepting Islam. There's nothing wrong with marrying a non-Muslim, but what I'm saying that he already accepted her in that way, in that state, where she wasn't wearing a hijab, she was a non-Muslim, she doesn't believe in God and stuff. And then he became a bit harsh with her once they had children. He wanted the children to become Muslims, rightly so. The father wants his children to have Islamic education. However, she refused. She told him that they had agreed before they got married, or even at the point when they were married, that the children would have a freedom to choose, and they shouldn't be forced into any religion. And he already accepted, according to her. I never spoke to the brother to take his side of the story, but according to her, that he'd accepted all these terms that she laid down to him from the very start, and then he started to change. She told me that he was started to become more religious. Allah was guiding him, and then there was all these fights, and she said the whole root of all these arguments was because of religion. So the whole marriage broke apart, and she blames it on religion, and on Islam. And I was trying to give her dawah and trying to tell her, the correct way and why, it's important for the children to have, Islamic education or that kind of stuff. But she didn't even have the roots. She didn't have the fundamental basics of Islam, or even or proof of a creator. So I had to really speak at a very basic level, convince her first there is a creator, there's a supernatural entity, and then I have to convince her, talk to her about the revelations and the prophets and all the creations of Allah. I had to talk. There was a lot of work, so she was not exposed correctly to Islam. At the end, she didn't become a Muslim, but that's not the point. Allahu Alam. I haven't spoke to her afterwards, but it was just a couple of encounters, and I wanted to find out the reasons why the marriage broke down. But that's just an example. So some people, they just say, "Oh, do this, or pray, or wear hijab or dress this way," without giving the reasons or trying to educate that individual, whether it's a family member or it's a partner or something, or a friend, without giving the knowledge or sharing the knowledge. They kind of give orders, and people just get put off that way. So we should always be gentle and kind in when we're doing a da'wah or trying to advise other people. We should speak in a nice way. Even Musa himself, Allah ordered him when to speak to Pharaoh, to speak to him in a nice way, and to give him that, to give him da'wah in this gentle way. He didn't tell Musa go with an army with weapons and ambush or do a military coup on Pharaoh, and he didn't tell him that. He told him go speak to Pharaoh in a nice way. And of course Pharaoh rejected the message. He rejected the advice from Musa. And so this is the way that this is the methodology. Allah's already told us our way of how to criticize a leader or how to communicate with a leader if you have the opportunity, or someone close to that individual. So this is my opinion. At the end of the day, I'm limited in knowledge, and I'm always trying to learn all the time. So if I'm lacking certain things or information, give me some constructive criticism. I welcome constructive criticism, because ultimately you're teaching me something, and I respect my teacher or someone who's teaching me something. It doesn't matter about your age. It doesn't matter about anything else. It doesn't matter a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. I can learn from anybody, even children. I can learn from children. It's not a problem at all. So if you have some information that I lack or certain knowledge that I don't have, share it with me. Allah's given me a brain. He's given me a natural disposition to guidance, which we all have. So I can always see if what you're saying is truth. I can investigate. I can get the information verified. If it's correct, then I will change my stance. If it's incorrect, or you just believe it because someone told you, or this is the way that it's culture or something outside Islam, then of course I won't accept it. I accept the Quran. I accept the sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the example of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the example and the teachings from his companions, the close companions as well. So that's the way I operate, and that's the way we should be all operating as Muslims. We should be uniting under La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, and abandon any sects or any deviant groups that we might be associated with, that may be calling out to uprising. Anyone that says, you should go on a protest, or the COP 20 whatever 25 in Egypt, I think it's 27, I forgot, I don't even follow these things, but whatever it is, we should go out there and riot and cause havoc. It's completely, absolutely ridiculous. This is nothing more than from shaitan. This is what Iblis wants. He wants us all to be fighting each other, arguing, having these petty fights. This brother making a YouTube video criticizing this other brother, and this other brother has to obviously defend himself. So now he criticizes, Daniel. Daniel, you're dishonest, and this brother says, oh, you're saying this, you're what do you call it, Khawarij, and this guy says, oh, you are a bootlicker, and it's completely childish. We're all adults, we're mature, we don't have to go into these immature arguments. We should be instead trying to complete each other, and increase each other's value, increase each other, like knowledge value, not income, financial. Money is nothing. You lose money, you make money, you lose money, you lost nothing. I mean, I've had a fortune in the past. I've made a fortune, I lost it. Made more money, lost more money. It doesn't matter. I've failed a lot. I've had some successes, some failures. It's perfectly normal. The one thing that you lose that's really valuable is the time. Time is the only thing that you cannot get back. I cannot get back 20 years, or even like 10 years. I was building up a business, and it was growing, and then something happened, and a big crash, had my capital wiped out, and I had to start up again. So I have experience, I had education in my field. I had, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me with several master degrees. I'm now working on my PhD and doing, also running my business and stuff. But that's one thing you can't replace, is the time. And the only thing that you can accumulate is knowledge. You can accumulate knowledge, you can accumulate experience, you can accumulate wisdom, and you can accumulate good deeds as well. That's something that no one can take that away from you except Allah. Of course, if you harm another human being, you could become bankrupt in the day of judgment. But let's just say that you kept yourself to yourself, basically, and you didn't harm anyone in your life, and no one has any claim against you in the day of judgment. Alhamdulillah, you've done well for yourself, and by the mercy of Allah, you go to Jannah. So it's fantastic. You've benefited yourself in this world, and you've benefited others, and Allah accepted your actions. Brilliant. Alhamdulillah. You have rida from Allah. You get a one-way ticket to paradise, and inshallah to the highest levels of Jannah to Firdaus as well, amongst the shuhada and the pious people and the prophets. So yeah, alhamdulillah, that's a brilliant, that's something for other people to look at and aspire to be like. This is the successful person that everyone should be aspiring to look, to be like, not to be Elon Musk. I don't envy Elon Musk. I feel sorry for him. Even if I was offered 10 times what Elon Musk has, and I would not envy him, or I would not aspire to be like him, because unless he obviously reverts to Islam and accepts Islam and changes his way and his understanding and stuff like that, then yeah, alhamdulillah, good for him. He's got the dunya and the akhirah. But someone who has no share in the akhirah, why should I even look at him as a role model or an example? Allah's given me a better role model, far better role model than any of these role models of today. This is the successful businessman. This is the successful person, or human being, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the example of a businessman. This is an example of a leader. This is the example of a father, a husband, a da'i, a student, a teacher. This is the example that I should be looking at, not a football player, not someone who's richest in the world financially, materialistically, because at the end it's nothing. It doesn't matter about the car that he's got, or a house, or the size of his house, or number of houses. It has no bearings at all for me, and it shouldn't have any bearing at all for any other Muslim. They should be looking at the companions and aspiring to be like them. And that's all I can say to you for now. Sorry if I went on a bit too long. I just wanted to share some of my bits and pieces here and there. If someone wants to subscribe, is more than welcome. I'm not really interested in using YouTube as a revenue stream for myself. I've got my own revenue stream, alhamdulillah for that. Allah's put me in that position now where I don't have someone I have to answer to, as in like a job or something like that, or a manager that can tell me, oh, you can't go Jummah, or you can go. I got to that level now, alhamdulillah. So I have some sort of freedom from the matrix. I'm still kind of part of the matrix in a way, but I have that freedom to speak my mind, to share, to work when I want to work, and do the bits and bobs here and there. But you have to also put an effort in the dunya, but always make the effort that you put in your dunya, the struggles, to always have an element where it will benefit society, it will benefit mankind, whether it be as simple as taking a percentage. I'm not going to talk about what I do, because I don't like talking or boasting about certain things, or look at me, and I'm not an example. Examples, like I said before, is the Prophet Muhammad, the companions of the Prophet, which all should be aspiring to be like them. But I'm just saying, give advice as if someone who wants to do some sort of a business or wants to do something, they should always put in their plan to give a percentage of their revenue. Just put it in a part of the plan. Okay, I'm going to put 10%, 5%, whatever you feel is fair, and consistently. Once I get some revenue in, I'm going to imagine that 5% of that revenue is as if it's taxed to the government, and I'll put that aside, and I'm going to give it towards, say, I don't know, refugees, or building a house for a refugee, or funding or sponsoring an orphan, or building a school somewhere. Just put that as a plan and contribute consistently as if it's taxed to the government. Put it aside for that, and always put aside a percentage for building up your business, to refinance your business, grow the business even more, invest in other asset classes, halal asset classes. Maybe you might have enough sufficient capital to buy a property, or to go into some sort of corporation where 2 or 3 individuals can collectively buy a property and you rent it out, for example. So you create some sort of revenue stream. So you always have that side. Don't spend your money on luxuries. I've met a lot of very successful business people, multi millionaires, far richer than what I was, or what I had in the past, and they always used to dress modestly. I'm not saying to you they would have like really poor quality clothes or something. They'll dress reasonably fine, but they won't be wearing luxurious clothes or stuff that you see on TV, and all the celebrities that you see as examples of wealth. They would dress very humble, they would mix normally. So you wouldn't even imagine this guy dressed in a jeans and t-shirt, or just a thawb, Islamic dress, and they go to the mosque and pray in Jummah, and you might not even know this guy is a multi-millionaire who's got like maybe 50 restaurants, or he's got a like chain store of retail stores, or you wouldn't even know that unless you know them individually. You would think he's probably a corner shop owner, or someone who's he's working as an employee somewhere. You wouldn't even know that he's the owner of this large chain of stores or anything like that. So I've met these people, and I've kind of seen how they live their life, how they've built from zero to went from zero to a very high level, to a successful businessman. And so I've kind of grew up with those kind of people that had influence on me, and kind of I've learnt from them, and I've seen how they're disciplined in their life, and at a very older age I've seen them also contributing, giving quite a large percentage of their to charities and stuff, secretly, not even openly, not in a way of like going to a charity dinner and say, oh, I'll put £500,000 towards this project. Not like that, but as an individual, they would go to a country and they would help out in a project, or they'll invest in this hospital that's being built. So they do things secretly, but they always work on this percentage. It's not like randomly giving up all their wealth. They would have all these businesses, and they'll take a percentage, and they will take it out and invest in noble causes. So I've seen this happening, and they were at the older age. A couple of them now have passed away. Pakistani brothers I knew were very wealthy, and they've passed away a few years back now. But I seen them when I was growing up, and they were building up their businesses. I've seen how they operated, and I've seen just before when they became ill at the old age, they were giving up a lot, and they're advising their children to contribute to certain causes in their name and that kind of stuff, because they knew they were near the end of their life and stuff. So they did a lot of things in their home country, Pakistan, and other parts of the world as well. They've contributed, alhamdulillah, and it's something that inspired me also to follow in their footsteps when I do any sort of investment or any sort of business. I always put it part of my plan to also have something, that percentage, to put that aside for a cause as well. Because even I'm not saying to do it just because for yourself you want Jannah stuff. It's a noble cause, but do it because you love Allah, and you are here as a servant of Allah, and you're here to serve others and to benefit society. So always think in that way, that you're here working for Allah as a slave. You're a slave in this world, and you have a purpose. Allah created you for a purpose, and He gave you success, whether it's knowledge, whether it's financial capital, to use that not for yourself. It's the means for others that are less fortunate than you. And I'm not talking about less fortunate people like lazy Muslims that just prefer to sit on the side and do absolutely nothing, not pursue any education or have any goals or ambition, and they have an equal opportunity to participate in society and to make a contribution, and whether it's education or research or to create their own business, but they prefer to just put their hand out and expecting you to just give them money like as a beggar, if someone standing on the street. I know about homeless people. I know some situations where people have gone to the level and they become homeless, but there are some people, it's by their choice. They've made themselves in this situation, and they're expecting, and they're blaming the government, they're blaming the society, they're blaming the community for leaving them in that state, when in actual fact it's them who's put themselves in that situation, and they can help themselves, but they prefer that someone else provides for them, which is the incorrect thing. And I'd like to also add that there are Muslim countries that I've gone to, and I went to the mosque, and I have met up with some brothers in the mosque, and they were like telling me that they're Salafis and all that. It's all beautiful stuff. Yeah, I understand the concept of Ahl Salaf. I know that's all perfect, but these brothers, they've completely misunderstood the whole thing. And they're sitting in the mosque doing absolutely nothing. They do all the prayers, alhamdulillah, they're doing all the worships, but when I asked them, what are you doing, what are you students? They were young men. What are you studying? They said they haven't been to university. They don't have they can go to university because their university in their country is free. It's like part of their thing. They told me that they have an option. A lot of people go to university because they get paid to go to university. They get a grant and they get funding from the government, because the government's trying to encourage people to in that particular Arab country, and but they chose not to, and they chose to dedicate their time to sit in a mosque like a monk, basically. And I told them, this is not Islam. Islam is not about just sitting in a mosque and just socializing until this prayer time. You do your fard salah. It's good. You pray in a mosque. Alhamdulillah, it's good. But between the times of prayers, you should be doing something. You should be studying, learning something, and doing business or doing something for time, thinking about contributing to society. And they started arguing with me. One individual actually that was kind of more heated, in a way, to the point where he wouldn't, when he would see me in a mosque, I would say to him, Assalamu alaikum, and he wouldn't even reply back to me. And when I told him, when I say salam, it's an obligation on you, you have to return the salam, and he would say, no, I don't regard you as one of us. So immediately he made takfir on me, just because I told him that, you should be using the time between the prayers for building something outside, contributing to society, doing something, learning, even studying, just even study Islam, like go to university, study Islam, that's good, you're learning knowledge. But just sitting in a mosque, just chit chat about normal things, life, whatever, or just having a laugh in a corner of a mosque, sitting there until the time for prayer, and you'll be the first person to pray. But it's something beautiful to have that luxury and to attend every fard prayer. It's good. It's a good reward. You get a huge reward for praying in a mosque. But Allah did not say this is Islam. If everyone does this, there'll be no doctors, there'll be no engineers, there'll be no teachers, there'll be nothing. We'll be backwards. So they have a misunderstanding of what Islam is and being a servant of Allah. So we should be going out there and doing something, even if it's just digging the ground and planting seeds and growing trees, or helping out in society, visiting the old people and helping out the old people, someone with a disability that might be needing help, not for financial gain, but just if you've got that free time and you've got all the money in the world, and so, okay, you might have inherited wealth, go out there and benefit others with your wealth, benefit others with your time. So donate, give zakat with your time, give zakat with your money, give zakat with your health. So do that, it's fantastic. But for those brothers, they seen that what they're doing is fantastic, and they're dedicating their life for Allah this way, and dedicating their life for Islam by just sitting there and just basically doing it, living a life like a monk. And that's not Islam. That is not Islam. Islam, you have to play a role in this dunya, and also at the same time, the role that you're playing in this dunya has to be a form of ibadah for the akhirah. So your work has to be real worship, not that your work takes over your religious obligations, as in, you have a business and you abandon your praying for business. You don't do that. So you do your prayers at the time, but also in that sense, you also make your work as a form of worship, because your work will benefit others, will benefit you, will benefit your family, but also would benefit society as a whole. You're making a contribution, whether it's through knowledge, or whether you're working, you're building up capital, you're creating employment for others, and also contributing to the less fortunate, the people that are truly have no opportunity to build their own business. There are countries and there are people, war-torn regions, and they don't have an opportunity. They don't have an opportunity for education. They don't have an opportunity to do any work. There's nothing there for them. There are people and sisters that are being subjugated to sexual harassment and abuse and stuff like that, and they're refugees, and they're living in a tent. They have nowhere to go to to do whatever, and there's all these evil men around them exploiting them. There are people that are being subjugated into modern day slavery. There's human trafficking going on. So there's a lot of things that we can be tackling than just sitting at home doing nothing, or sitting in a mosque and just doing our religious duty, which is a small percentage of Islam. It's not Islam is a complete way of life. It's a holistic. There's a relationship between us and the Creator, but then there's a bigger percentage of Islam is the relationship between us and the other creation, the community, the society, what role we're playing in the society. So there is something that needs to be shared with, even the khutbahs and stuff. There needs to be educating the ummah on these matters, not just tell them to pray and fast, which is all good, but we also need to get them to benefit from these praying and fasting, to relate to others, and to connect and to make a contribution to society as a whole. And that is the way that we can rise to the top. That is the way that sincere and righteous leaders can rise up from amongst us. And just to add as well, anyone that desires leadership, you should not elect them. Anyone that says, well, you know what, once I get in power and, you know, elect me or vote for me and put me in power, and I will take care of all your affairs, avoid these people. Anyone that wants this, they don't understand anything about Islam, and they lack knowledge, because it's a big burden to be a world leader. I never want to be president of a country or stuff like that. The most I'm doing is I'm building my own business, so I'm a leader of my own company, so I make decisions for my own company, but that's as far as I'll go. I don't want to get into a position of authority, because it's a big burden on any human being. It's just the trial and tribulation that you will face, the whole burden on your shoulders for everyone in the country, everyone in the ummah, to make sure that they are being satisfied. It's a big burden to bear, and it's very serious. And that's why Umar ibn Khattab used to go out at night and used to listen to what people are talking about. If someone feels there's any injustice in the community, he would act immediately, because he's scared that Allah will use this complaint will reach Allah, and this could be used against him in the Day of Judgment. He's seen a poor Jewish man in the street begging, and he asked him, why are you in the street? Why are you begging? And he said, well, I have no family to take care of me, and I'm an old age. He doesn't have a job. And he rushed. This is the leader of the ummah, Umar al-Khattab, to a Jewish man, not a Muslim man, a Jewish man begging in the street. And he rushed to Bayt al-Mal, and he took out provisions and he gave it to him, and he made an order, decree: anyone reaches old age, the whole benefit system is from Islam. So the benefit system that exists in the West, it doesn't exist in Muslim countries, but it exists in the West, is actually from Islam. It's from Umar ibn Abdul Khattab. So this whole system of providing to less fortunate is from Islam to all of mankind, not just Muslims. It's not a system exclusively for an ethnic group or a religion. For all of mankind, we have a responsibility for the whole of humanity, whether they are a believer or not a believer. This is the way that we should be implementing Islam. This is our religion. This is Islam. If the people know about this and the beauty of Islam, they will at least adopt the system, the Islamic way of life. They will adopt it in their life, even if they don't believe in a creator. Of course, if they believe in a creator, they've got the share of the reward in this dunya, and they've got a share in the akhirah as well, in the hereafter. So they get paid twice, basically. You get paid here and you get paid over there, which is more important, is the eternal life in the akhirah. And that's the way that, obviously this is the ultimate success. Anyway, I've spoken quite a bit now. I think I've gone over an hour. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, like the video. If you enjoy listening to some of the content, by all means subscribe to my channel. I hope it benefits you. Inshallah, I've got some plans. I've got a project I'm working on at the moment. Once I get a bit of free time, I'm planning to create videos, maybe talk about my personal life, things that I've done, things I've succeeded in, things when I failed. Not just to say, well, this is where I failed, but to really share the mistakes I've done in business or trading or investing or anything, so other people can learn from, and they can avoid the same mistakes I've done when I was younger, and so they can get a shortcut, basically avoid similar pitfalls. I'd like to make videos, obviously talking about religious aspects, obviously to increase my knowledge as well in Islam, make reaction videos and learn from other brothers as well, their knowledge, refresh my mind on some of their stuff as well. Especially when I was at a younger age, I was doing da'wah quite actively. Alhamdulillah, some people are guided to Islam by the will of Allah, alhamdulillah for that, but at the same time I need to refresh my memory on that, and I should get more active in da'wah at a personal level, one-to-one level, or making videos as well, sharing my opinion and my understanding on things, so that people can get a chance to correct my understanding if I'm wrong, Allah knows best. Allah A'lam what's right. So I could only do my best, and I'd wish I'd dedicate a portion of my life to really study Islam academically, properly, through a proper structured way. Yeah, that would benefit me quite a lot. There was a fine brother. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but there was a fine brother, a religious brother from Syria, for example. I met in Latvia. I actually forgot his name, but he was very knowledgeable in Islam, and he would dedicate quite a bit of his time to me. And he said he wants to teach me about Aqidah and stuff, and he would bring all the books. And every Jummah in the evening, after we do a Maghrib prayer, and then go to Isha. And this was during lockdown as well, so it was during the time where it was actually forbidden to do Jummah. But alhamdulillah, I was still doing Jummah, although in Latvia congregations were forbidden, but I was still doing Jummah at the time with a small number of brothers. And he took me through the process or the steps to do khutbas in Jummah as well, because we had to divide the brothers into small groups, and we had to do Jummah in secret in small numbers. And so that was going on at the same time. So there are people that apply. I'm not the best example, but there are people out there that apply Islam holistically in their life. And he taught me quite a lot. He corrected me on a few points on a one-to-one basis. We went through certain ahadith. He told me the steps to khutbah. He gave me some examples of khutbah I need to follow. The only problem that I had, and the challenge I had, is actually announcing the Arabic words, because I have difficulty announcing the Arabic words correctly. So he used to correct me quite a lot on verses in the Quran when I'm reading the Quran. So I neglected that when I was younger. So I lack that at the moment. This is one of my biggest weaknesses, the Arabic language. I can speak Arabic, but I'm not very fluent in reading and writing as well. I have a challenge in that. But he would help me, and I would try to memorize as much as possible, so I don't say anything wrong or I announce the verse incorrectly, because it's important. He told me it's very important. You should say the words correctly when you read them, and especially in a khutbah and stuff. And some people in the community might also criticize me if I've read something incorrect during the khutbah. They might criticize me because we're only a small community at the time. This is in East Europe, in Latvia, and they're a bit extreme over there. The government there is very Islamophobic. They're anti-Islam, as many European countries, but I've seen it more in France, in Germany, kind of. They're anti-Islam in a big way, but more so in Latvia. And may Allah give them hidayah, guidance. But even in the worst, where they completely locked down, there were still people interested in inquiring about Islam, and there were a number of Latvians that have reverted to Islam. Maybe there was one brother as well contacted me through YouTube previously when I was kind of making videos, and he's a revert from Latvia. So Allah guides those people. I'm not talking to you about the people that are anti-Islam. I'm talking about governments. Governments, you always find people in governments that are behaving a certain way. Again, but as individuals, one-to-one, people are lovely people over there, very friendly. But it's just the rules over there. It kind of discriminates against Muslims. Just the same way in Palestine under the occupation of Israelis, the Zionists. There's a lot of oppression, a lot of anti-Islam, a lot of racism and stuff. But Jews, are just the people that are, they're following the Torah, or normal people, but they happen to be Jewish and believe they're lovely people as well. Some of them are against. They're standing up against their governments as well, and they're calling for justice for the Palestinians. So it's not about a race or a people, but the governments are the people that are in power. Therefore, they can brainwash the populace. They have all the tools to misguide people. They have the media, and unfortunately, a lot of people, even Muslims, they watch the BBC or they watch the news, and they think this is the complete truth. It's like divine revelation when they watch the TV. So they think this is the truth and it's the only truth. But you should question everything you see and hear. You should verify information. You shouldn't just blindly believe and think somehow Iblis and his army are working for your best interests, because they're not. They're obviously working to misguide you. So you should always find out the truth yourself, whether it's regarding a disease or a virus or whatever. Find out for yourself if it's facts or fiction. Don't follow orders blindly like sheep. Take this whatever jab, and don't do that. Don't harm yourself, and don't put your life in danger just by following them, because they want to kill you, they want to destroy you, they want to corrupt you, they want to influence you in a negative way, they want to lead you astray. So don't be a guinea pig for them to try experiments on you or to mislead you. Always go back to the source, which is the Quran and the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the companions, and this is your true source. This is how look at it always from that side. How would the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ deal with a situation like this? What would he do if he was here today? Always ask yourself and find out. Look, because history repeats itself. In one form or another, it always repeats itself. So you should always look at examples from the past. Look at examples from the stories from the Quran. Allah, told us certain stories about Khidr alayhi salam, about Yusuf and his brothers, and and all these stories that's in the Quran. They're there for a reason. It's not for entertainment. It's not like just it's a nice like bedtime story. It's not like that. There's a lesson for us to learn from everything that's in anything that's in the Quran, anything that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did in his life, anything that's happened during the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and the companions. What happened to the companions in their lifetime as well are lessons for us. Are lessons for us to learn from. We should ponder over everything and see what value can we draw from every single story that's inside the Quran, and everything life experience from the people that have gone in the past, even the people that have made mistakes. Learn from what happened to Pharaoh, what happened to Qawm Lut when they went astray, and they were working against the people that have sided with Iblis, the servants of Iblis. What happened? Where are they today? What happened to them? How humiliating their death was, and their punishment when Allah brought the punishment to them. We don't want to be amongst those who are misguided, and we don't want the same punishment to happen to us. Qarun and Namrud and all these people. We don't want to be like them. We don't want to aspire to be like Fir'aun. We want to aspire to be like the companions of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. We want to aspire to be amongst the people of Jannah, inshaAllah. We want to aspire to be good servants of Allah, slaves of Allah, obedient servants of Allah, beneficial, people to remember us for good. Of course, you always have enemies, Anyone that's good or speaks the truth will always attract enemies. Just take it as a fact. No, not everyone's going to be happy with you. There are people there that will feel that you're a threat to their livelihood or their control, and they will always attack you. Just like Omar ibn Abdul Aziz. Look at all the amazing things that he's done. How much sacrifice is given for the Ummah, and how he eradicated poverty and done so much good, and yet he got poisoned and got killed. Why? Because of the benefit that he was doing for society. He wasn't trying to harm anyone, he was benefiting everyone. He eradicated poverty, he created equal distribution of wealth, he created full or near full employment, except those who are at an old age. There was no one that was in need of any charity. So they were donating all the charity from Bayt al-Mal to the non-Muslims in Europe. The non-Muslims were in the Dark Ages. It was a golden age for the Muslims. It was a golden age for the Christians, or those who are following the religion of Christianity. Of course, they completely this is besides the point where they're misguided and all that stuff, but that was their golden age. The people that were in the Ummah at the time, the Jews, it's the golden age according to the Jewish history. Always you watch the rabbis and you see what they say about that period, and they say this was the best period. It's even better. It was a better period than what they have today. Than what they have their own land and all that stuff. It's not even the golden age now. The golden age was in the past, when Islam was being implemented. That's according to them as well. They had peace, prosperity, opportunity to grow, and this was the time where things were building up and things were just improving. It was the best period of their life, and it was the best period for the Muslims when Islam was being implemented. Yeah, so it was then when we had a righteous guide, righteously guided Khalifa like Umar ibn Abdul Aziz. Everyone, the whole world was happy. The only people that weren't happy were the people that were trying to exploit others. The Ilha Allah, those people, the people that wanted to control the world, the kings and the monarchy in Europe that were against the Muslims, that were subjugating their population to high taxes and exploiting people. So they want to keep people at extreme poverty, because when you have people at extreme poverty, they'll do anything to survive. They'll sell their body, they'll sell their soul, they'll sell their children, they would sell everything to survive, because they're not in a good state. I mean, you speak to some people today and they're struggling financially, and you tell them what's happening in Palestine. They say, well, who cares about what's happening in Palestine, brother? I've got my own problems. I can't afford, the bank won't loan me money to buy a house. I'm trying to buy a bigger house for my family, and the bank's not giving me the money, and I'm not earning enough to. And they're too busy chasing the dunya, and not even chasing the dunya to do something halal. They're chasing the dunya so they could do more haram, to buy the latest iPhone. They're so busy, they don't care what's going on in the world. They just care about themselves and surviving. Brother, you don't understand. My wife is giving me a headache. She's saying the last time we went on holiday, last time we went to Egypt was a year ago. We need to go on holiday once a year. That's how people are lost. They lost the plot. They prefer to be a slave in the matrix than a slave to Allah. Unfortunately, this is the reality that we're in today. So that first thing you have to do, you have to free your mind, free yourself from the shackles, and come out of the matrix as much as possible. Don't get controlled, don't get manipulated, and then start seeing the world as it is, and see where you could play a role to prove things. So I'm really sorry for going on a bit, and thank you very much for watching. And like I said before, if you like the video, do hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more content from me, subscribe. Inshallah, I will try my best to come up with videos, whether it's a vlog like this, just unedited, like this, just to speak, or I'll try to create something more professional. Maybe, just be patient with me, maybe when I finish a project that I'm working on right now, then I would have a bit of free time to then do something more professional content, edited content and that kind of stuff, and to give you value in that way. I don't want you to waste time. I want you to benefit from, if I have something to benefit you with, inshallah, then alhamdulillah, that'll be good if you could draw some benefit once I do make some really good quality videos. Inshallah, by the will of Allah, this can happen. Yeah, thank you very much for everything. And I'm going to attach the video regarding, obviously, points from Saajid Lipham. He's made some very good points in his video. Short and sweet. He gets to the point. I just don't like the title. This thing, he's saying dishonesty of Daniel and all that stuff. And I dislike, I love Ali Dawah, I love Muhammad Hegab, I love all these brothers, but I get really upset, when they start attacking each other. Or this brother says, oh look, he shot down this guy, now he's destroyed his career. They talk about these things and they make jokes and they laugh a lot, and they're laughing at another Muslim. There's nothing to laugh about. You shouldn't be laughing, because at the end of the day you're looking bad on the internet. The only people that are laughing, you're laughing, and the people that are laughing at you and laughing at all of us are the enemies of Allah. So you're just entertaining the enemies of Allah. That's all you're doing. So there's nothing to laugh about. How could you laugh when sisters are being raped in Palestine and killed? How could you laugh about that? How could you have the audacity to laugh? We should all be crying, about what's going on in the world today. Maybe you're living in the West and you're comfortable and you're relaxed and you're happy, you've got food, and a lot of people don't have that privilege as you. So there's nothing you should be crying about what's going on in the world. And so not laughing and not criticizing other Muslims. Try and support them, give them knowledge, share your evidence, let them share their evidence, you share your evidence, and either they would learn something from you or you would learn something from them. At the end of the day, they're entitled to their own opinion. Brother Saajid, he studied at Medina University. Respect him for his education. Anyone that has education, has gone through some sort of training or some sort of education program, we should respect him. We should give him that respect. So we should never criticize someone's knowledge or understanding. Allah created us all different. We can see the same problem, but we can have a different solution. We can see from a different angle, and we're all correct. So this is jihad. We're all struggling to improve, and in certain matters, Allah left things flexible. It's not just a straight black and white. Halal, haram. There are certain areas where it's like a very broad range, and we can take any position, and every position is permissible, but not to the point where we go to the extreme and cause harm to others. So we should definitely avoid causing any sort of fitna or division or harm or doing something that could have a backlash and give Islam a bad name. So always put that in your mind. And the video was really about criticizing leaders, and to just summarize in case you've missed the point, my opinion is that we should never stand up against a tyrant leader as long as they don't command you to go against the Sharia of Allah. No one's in a position to implement political Islam, or the political side, or the economic system of Islam at this point in time. No one's in a position to implement the legal system of Islam at this point, because you have to be in a position in government to do that. But you are in a position right now to go and do 2 rakat prayer. You're in a position to fast. No one's going to stop you to do that. As long as they don't stop you from fulfilling your religious obligation, then you're not allowed to stand up against them and cause fitna in that sense. And this is not my words, this is just a hadith that's on the internet, from Sahih Bukhari and so many other hadiths. Go check them out yourself, find out if the facts. Don't just go on your own whims and just say, oh, this is what we're doing, blah blah blah. Always go back to the source and draw your evidence from the Quran and the sayings of the Prophet ﷺ only. Don't speak about some leader somewhere done this and some leader done this, and if he's done it, then he surely should have known about these hadiths, and surely he would have known about this. Don't say that. Don't look at anyone other than the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his companions, rightly guided khulafa, and the Quran. This is the source of guidance. This is our source. We don't follow any particular imam or anything like that. The imam is the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions, and that's what we should be doing. And by all means, you could advise people. There's nothing wrong with that. If you see a brother that's not praying, you give him advice to pray. It's fine. If you see a brother that's running a business and he's doing something haram, tell him this isn't wrong. If you see someone that's got a company and he's got a number of employees and he's being unjust to them, you have to tell him, yeah, taqillah, and tell them about the rules of how to govern their own little empire, their business or their family. Guide. So many brothers don't know how to be a husband, a proper husband. So many sisters don't know how to be a wife, a Muslim wife. A lot of people are misguided. So teach them about the creation of man and woman, and we're equal, but we're different. There are differences, so you have to educate the community first. We're at the moment we're in this age of ignorance. So we're right now at this time exactly at the same period that the Prophet was, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was in Mecca alone, and the only thing that he was telling the people to worship only one God. La ilaha illallah. That's all he was doing. Establish the prayer. Yeah, fine. He wasn't trying to overthrow Quraysh at this point. He wasn't doing any of that. Yeah, so we should follow that methodology. We're in this period right now. We're in a period of Jahiliyyah. Period of Jahiliyyah right now. This is where we are. We're starting from this position. We don't have an Islamic state. We don't have a Khalifa. None of that's happening. So we're starting at the age of Jahiliyyah. And amongst us, the community are still lost. They're not doing La ilaha illallah. They don't have the correct Aqidah. There is people that are lost, completely lost. They don't understand. They think Islam is something that you inherit. You're born Muslim. And amongst the best Muslims today are the reverts, the people that had researched Islam, and they've really gone into the religion or gone into that way of life, or reverted back to the way of life, the correct way of life after research. Many of the people that are born, they're following it as a culture, as if it's like an inherited belief system. You ask them, why are you a Muslim? They would not be able to answer that question. They will tell you, what a silly question that you're asking me. Because I've had people that told me that. Why are you asking me this question? Because my I was born a Muslim. They give me the answer. They cannot tell me why they believe in Allah, or if they believe in Allah even. They have doubts. There are people that have doubts. And one of a friend of mine, he was a medical student. He left Islam, and he was amongst those who were attending the mosque at the time at some point. But certain turbulences happened in his life, a few challenges here and there, and he started questioning. He would come to me and say to me, why did this happen to me? Why did Allah do this to me? What's wrong with you, brother? How can you ask me this question? Because he had weak Aqidah. He was doing it because it's part of his culture. But then later on he left because he lacked the taqwa in his heart. He didn't have real true iman. He did not have real true understanding. I wish he'd asked me a lot of these questions that he had doubts with, or misunderstanding in, or that kind of stuff. I wish he asked me these questions, and maybe I could have spent a bit of time with him. But I never expected it, that it would lead him to go astray. And the reasons afterwards, when I did meet up with him, he told me some things that are so trivial. Things that had he gone to any imam and asked him this question, he would have got the answers. Had he done a bit of research himself, he would have got the answers, the correct information, rather than just going on his own whims, or he disliked something and he says, oh, that's not fair, or this is not. Who are we to say what is fair and what's not fair? Who are we to say anything that Allah has told us to do is good or bad for us? We lack that understanding. We should research, and we'll find out that it's for our benefit, like I said before. But unfortunately, some people, they don't understand these things. They don't understand why, for example, Muslim sisters should wear hijab, why we should, men should have a beard, for example. They ask trivial things, and it makes them leave over something so trivial. Just because a sister doesn't want to wear a hijab, she leaves the whole religion. Just because someone mistreated her, her husband mistreated her, she leaves the religion. Just because something simple, trivial happens. Some guy loses his money, or loses his wealth, or he has some sort of a health condition. Some people come closer to Allah, some people go astray. So this is the strange thing, strange phenomenon. I've seen this a lot, where someone that's doing a lot of wrong things, and then something bad happens to him in his life, and it makes him think, and he turns back to Allah, and he repents and says, maybe this is a punishment from Allah, maybe I should be, maybe I should now turn to Allah, and he gets close to Allah. But then there's some people that I've met in my life where they have it all good. They come from a really good high class, upper class family, all the stuff. They got the silver spoon in their mouth, as they say, and a little bit of hardship, and it really shakes their iman if they had any iman in the first place, it shakes it to the core, and then they go completely the opposite direction. So it's completely strange how that can happen. But for me, I cannot even imagine it at all, why anyone with half a brain cell, I'm not saying to you they're intelligent, they're the lowest IQ person even, as long as they've got a little bit of intelligence, I cannot see anyone ever going against or complaining about something. It's just from the Creator who created us. He knows us better than we know ourselves. He knows what we need. He knows what's good for us. So for that to get to the point where someone would go the opposite direction, it's a small number. I'm not saying to you there's a big number there's a big stampede going the other way. No, it's a big stampede coming towards Islam. That's true. But there are certain individuals that are they get challenged, they get tested by Allah a little bit, and first thing they do, they look for the exit. They think by them abandoning the correct way of life and joining the ranks of Iblis in Jahannam is the way they're going to attain success, attain happiness, and attain all these things. Fortunately, that's the sad reality of the matter. And like I said, Allah only guides those who seek guidance. The individual has to seek guidance. Just like I meet a lot of people. They say, well, how do I make £1 million? How do I how do I do this, or how do I buy a property in a halal way, or that kind of stuff? Or this person's lucky. If they want to know and they want to seek that knowledge, they will get the answer. They have to ask how. Where can I start? How can I take? So if they're prepared to put in the effort and start researching that particular area, they will get it. They'll just like that. Just like, it's very simple. You have to seek something to get it. You can't just sit there and say, well, I want to be rich. I want to have £1 million. I want to have this. I want to have that. I'm talking about people that even not non-Muslims, but it shouldn't be like that. But even if you are, you have to seek guidance to get guidance, or seek wealth, or seek to do business, or seek to become an entrepreneur. To become an entrepreneur, you cannot just wish to be rich and somehow the sky's going to open and rain down gold bars on your head. It's not going to happen like that. You have to put in some effort. You have to meet your luck halfway. Anyway, I think I've done about an hour and a half here. I'm gonna close it down now. Thank you very much for watching. Jazakallah kulla khair, and barakallah fikum, all of you, for watching, and everybody is active in the da'wah scene and guiding, or even educating others on YouTube. I really appreciate you. You are very valuable member in society. Barakallahu feekum, and I wish you all the best until we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.